good. I'm actually very honored to be here. I love to come in Eastern Europe, and I see there on the front row one of our latest, greatest success in conversational AI. I don't know if you've seen helpukraine.sk. This is what our team in public service has been doing with conversational AI to help refugees find their way through integrating in Slovakia. And it's been really successful and been led by this particular team there at the forefront. So conversational AI has come of age, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about why you should take it very seriously. A lot of chatbots in the past were failure. They were first generation chatbot, but now you know, the technology has come of age. I think it's the wrong presentation. It's the one called Open Slava that we need to have, if that's okay. Apologies for that. You have it? Do you need help? It was open? Open Slava? Here we go. I think that's probably the right one. Let me just have a look. Here we go. So, sorry about that. I was going to talk to you about melting planet otherwise and sustainability. So just a few words about me. So I think it's been said, I lead our data and AI practice in Europe at Accenture. And I also lead globally conversational AI practice for now 6-7 years, and really seen a huge inflection in the technology. I was also privileged to be part of the working group at the European Commission on Trustworthy AI. So all our work from the working group actually kind of came to life with a proposition for law around trustworthy AI recently. I'm also sitting at the board. I'm a big fan of open source, and I know you all are as well. Sitting at the board of Oasis Open in Europe, which is a foundation that has been created recently to be more aligned with the EU. Oasis Open, I'm sure all of you would know SAML and many of the standards that they're actually doing, which are pretty awesome. So if there are volunteers to come and help in all of the space, we're taking help. So now let's go back around conversational AI. I wanted to open up on, you know, we've gone through quite a lot of change in the past few years. You know, the pandemic, the melting planet, obviously very close to you, you know, the war in Europe, and everybody has changed. Normally, when I go in big conferences, I'm asking people, you know, how many of you have changed home or have changed job in the past few years? Obviously, you know, you're a student kind of audience, so that wouldn't necessarily apply to you. But basically, people have fundamentally changed following those past few years. And we estimating 3 billion of resources are going to be redistributed because people consume very, very differently, are going to consume very, very differently going forward. That's very relevant for conversational AI, because the best way to understand the individual is to have a conversation. And having a conversation with that many individuals is absolutely impossible without the technology. So, good, sorry. So it is a good time, and the market is really kind of responding to that. There's an estimation of the market there, which is 18.4 billion by 2026, and we see there's a lot of you know, software out there being developed. From Eastern Europe, from all over the world, quite a lot of technology really leveraging the power of AI and the cloud to really create new solutions to challenges. And we do really anticipate all of that to become mainstream. So what is conversational AI? Well, we all have conversation together to exchange information and to do transaction. Conversational AI is really a way to automate this. For me, the way I like to describe it to techie audience is a new system of engagement. You know, we talk about the system of record. Well, actually, this is the system of engagement. We used to have website. So when I started my career in Accenture in the late 90s, we used to create website, then we created app to engage with the systems and with the brands. Now, the way to interact with brand is going to be conversational, yeah? You know, having conversation. Nobody really wants anymore to go on a website and try to figure out what to do. They just want to ask a question and get the answers and be walked through their particular step. Conversational AI is very relevant as well because there's an explosion of channel everywhere. You know, I don't know, you know, you will use Instagram, you would use Facebook, probably the older generation use Facebook. You know, we would use WhatsApp. All of those channels are coming, and all of those things are a matter of preferences of particular community or age group. And for brands and brands that are serving, it's really difficult to manage all of those different means of interaction, which are conversational based, in a meaningful way if they don't embrace conversational AI, if you want, yeah? So definitely solving a number of challenges. A lot of people still like phone as well, yeah? So all of those things through the generation, you can see the preferences, and for brand not to be excluding particular group of users and consumer, they need to really embrace this way forward. So what does it change? You know, I'm talking about a new system of engagement. How do you engage consumers going forward? Or consumers or any people in the population, you know, like citizens. Well, the relationship in between human and machine is not new. It's not new at all. What we see is conversational AI is moving it to the next level. Before, our relationship to machine, when I was a computer engineer like you 25 years ago, I had to learn pretty hard how to code or how to learn or to actually interact with the system. That was, you know, we had to learn the machine. And gradually what we're seeing is the machine is starting to learn you. So the machine is learning how you speak to it and responding to it. And this is kind of the evolution that we're having, where the machine was really kind of a slave before. You know, you had to program it hardcore. Then it became an assistant, much more mainstream there in the background. And, you know, I have a project in the UK at the moment with the elderly population, with older people, and it's becoming a companion. So really our relationship between human and machine is really evolving. And that's why conversational AI, not only the technology is there, but, you know, we are ready as a society to start embracing those kind of technology a lot more. What does this typical solution look like? Well, actually, conversational AI is any system that speaks, but very often what we do, you know, the Marabian formula, you convey meaning, some with your natural language, some with your expressions, with your intonation. So there's a number of channels of inputs you will have, you know, probably the visual expression of a person, their intonation, what they say, and there's a number of things you can build on as you go on, yeah? Why is it called conversational AI is because for each of those inputs, you need some AI to be able to understand it. So you can interpret what's going on with that particular user and take a particular action. So that's kind of typically the architecture of a conversational AI solution. The key, though, is still kind of connected to the back end and take the action, and there's that loop in the background. Why the first generation chatbot didn't work? Well, actually, we didn't have much horsepower behind it. You know, the cloud didn't exist for first generation chatbots, so typically you didn't have all the data you needed to train your algorithm to actually understand all the nuances of everything. But also the AI was not as developed. All the cloud providers now have really advanced what's possible. A lot of the AI algorithm out there, they are pre-trained for you. So, you know, they're already clever in some shape or form, and you can overtrain them with some of your language. You know, things in a conversational AI solution like computer vision, natural language processing, hyper-personalization, all of those technology now have come to bear, and therefore can be very powerful. One of the things that people completely underestimate when they do conversational design is the design element. You know, really knowing how to piecemeal all of those things. It's not just a technology exercise, it's really also understanding the human and making sure those communication that you're shaping are going to be simple and, you know, powerful and effective. So there's a good mix of skills that's required there. But the technology ultimately is out there and at the ready. So not only the technology is out there, but we as humans are more happy to interact with machine. I know, for instance, working with older people in the UK, that at the beginning they were like, oh my God, I'm going to break it, I don't want to touch it. You know, being scared that something was speaking to them, really being paranoid. But actually, what we see in some of our clients and some of our projects is acceptance of these new ways of interacting. And, you know, I'm just going to give you a fact that I was Googling just before, is now 25% of the search, 27% of the Google search are made using voice. So we really are starting to embrace the usage of those kind of natural language processing interfaces and things like that are much more natural. And in the same way, my older cohort of people are actually very excited now working with that technology. So we see some level of acceptance. Why is it acceptance? Well, actually, a computer system that understands what you say, that has patience, is quite priceless. Because a lot of people, you know, when you call a call center or ask for help, people just want to close as fast as possible. They just don't want to lose time. And actually, for some people, you know, it may make sense to take the time and go at a different pace. Or they may feel more comfortable asking 2 times the same question if they don't understand the answers. But there's also the intelligence at pace, I call it, you know, like, you get the answer faster, because typically when you do a conversational AI project, you automate you know, the knowledge management and the answers that are supposedly coming back. So instead of having a human navigating 30 interfaces in the back trying to figure out what's going on, you know, you have cleaned up the knowledge, and that's making, you know, the interaction much more fast as well. The patience, the anonymity. So we've seen that in the financial services domain, where people were feeling very comfortable with sharing their personal financial situation with a robot, but then with a mortgage advisor or a particular human, they felt judged and they didn't want to go and share some of the things they were just not feeling proud of, where they didn't have problem kind of looking at sharing that with a robot and seeing what the robot was going to say and explore. So all of those things are making a difference in terms of the acceptance. So I think the message I'm trying to say is the world is changing massively. The only way society can understand what people want is to really have conversation with them. We can't have human-on-human conversation at that level of scale. It's too much change. So conversational AI is there. Conversational AI is also mature now, with all those technology being ready, and people are ready to accept it in their daily life, and we can start seeing that as we go on. one of the things with all those systems, and it's the same a little bit with the metaverse, I think we started to kind of touch on that point at the end of Fadi's session, is where is the balance? So, having a chatbot that's working well, that's nice and pleasant is good. But, having a robot that looks like a human that's helping an older person may be too much for that older person. So at Accenture, what we've created is a framework to design those solutions. And what we used as a base is we look at the Human Rights Charter. Yeah? And we're like, where does the technology has a potential of, potential of breaking one of those human rights? And we actually simplified the whole framework into 3 particular categories. One is looking human. So, as a brand, do you need to mimic a human body to answer to your customers? Why would you do that? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. In different situations, it may be different answers. But, if you mimic human, there may be some good reason for that, but there's also some good reason for not doing it. For example, for one of our particular bank, it was a long time ago, so I can talk about this example. It was when Claude was taking over, we had a design team that had designed a pretty sexy financial advisor, and we were like, why? And then she was starting to get a lot of abuse, the chatbot, because the customer would tease and just really interact it in the wrong way. So, there's some big question around, you're representing a brand, it's a new system of engagement, there's some question on how it needs to look like. And if your brand is, trendy, or if your brand is more conservatist, if you want to inspire different feeling to your audience, is very important. You spend time to actually design this particular chatbot and evolve it. And it's really important also, it's not completely inconsistent with how your brand is perceived on the market. Because you definitely, also don't want to perpetrate stereotype, like women are assistant. We're not assistant. Those things are also important. Why would you put a woman rather than a guy? I know some of the bank would be like, oh, we put a guy because it inspires more confidence. Well, does it? Society has a number of bias, and when you start computerizing those, you need to be very careful you're not propagating them, Obviously, then there's the other angle around understanding the human. What is the information you're going to start taking? If you take, visual expression or some of the data around the particular person, are you taking too much? Are you trying to, go beyond what the human is asking your brand to do? So those things also are super important, and it's obviously the right of privacy. If you're looking at the old person and they're in pajama or naked in front of their computer doing some internet banking, well, it shouldn't be your matter, So it doesn't really matter, but those things are quite important to think through. And then behaving like the human. So, when there's a bot that looks, in some shape or form human, that picks up a lot of information from you, and then that behaves back as a human. There's also potential consequences. So as human, we often make inferences. So, I don't know, I could infer that you're tired if you're yawning, or things like that. But we just need to make sure, or I could infer if I know you're in a difficult financial situation, I could infer that you need a loan and push you a loan, or things like that. And there, we need to be very careful as computer scientists not to make inferences that are depriving the end user from choice, the right of choice and freedom. We're not there to take decision on their behalf, yeah? That's super important. So this is kind of the layman of, the market, what's important, and why we all need to be concerned about that new system of engagement. I've put a couple of golden rules there. I'm just not going to spend too much time on each of them, but there are 10. The first one is every time you're in a conversational situation, you need to think about the relationship with the end user. So reinvent that relationship, if you want, with the end user. So what's really not working is if, a website does like 15,000 steps of something, and then you just do it in a chatbot. This is not what a conversation would look like. Just imagine a conversation with a brand. Just forget about the legacy of what has been done before, and try to take it to the next level. The other one is around the bot personality, and we talked a lot about it in the concept of ethics, but it's super important to spend some time on document and continuously report on it as well. Those things can evolve. Speak human, but don't pretend to be one. So then now there's a regulation as part of the trustworthy AI work. It's illegal to pretend to be a human and not declaring it. So every conversational solution needs to be saying, I am a digital assistant, I'm not a human. You can't pretend to be human when you're not, yeah? One of the things I like a lot is design your conversation for voice first. So in the old days of app and all of that, people were saying do mobile first. I say voice first. The reason why I say voice first for conversational AI, conversations are normally voiced. And they're much more effective typically. You're much more to the point if you're using the voice channel. And typically it's much harder to get the right conversation, but it's much more efficient as you kind of reinventing that set of interactions. So try the hardest, because then if you need a little graph or extra things to support it, your conversation will still be very lean and good. Don't underestimate the challenge of tech op. So I've seen a number of our clients kind of putting, doing what they call an MVP with a few transactions in there and putting it on the front page. Well, that doesn't really work, because you're setting the expectation that the chatbot is going to help you with everything that's on the website if you put it on the front page, yeah? So find places where you can, I don't know, maybe it's support for payment or things like that, but do it really, really well, because people are going to try, and if they're disappointed, they won't do it again. So it needs to be really matching the expectation of people from the outset, so where you have it, yeah? Think about a bot ecosystem. By that, I mean, if you're a computer scientist or engineer, like me, you don't like to do 15,000 times the same code, yeah? And, think about your bot as a little bit of a society of bots. You have a bot speaking up, yeah? But behind, maybe you have a process for payment management. You have a process for, I don't know, card being not issued. And then you can call them with each other, a little bit like the object-oriented things we were doing 25 years ago. So you don't have, if a process changes, you change one of the slave bot, if you want, rather than changing your whole architecture. It's much better for maintenance as you go on, yeah? Be clear about the state of your knowledge. So in some of our clients, we spend more time trying to find the answer than actually doing the bot. I was working with an airline that has code sharing with some other airlines, some legal agreement that are very specific on luggages and what you can carry and not carry and things like that. And sometimes the bot can ask a simple question, but because of the various construct in the background, it may be very hard. So I think in general, companies haven't really taken care of their knowledge very well for the past 20 years. Knowledge is not curated always. There's 15 answers to the same question in the company. And when you're starting to automate all of that, you start to see it visible. So I think as we go through the next generation of automation, all of that is going to bubble up. And people are going to be disappointed because, until you curate that knowledge, you will have problems, yeah? Smooth handover with human, obviously, as I was saying, nobody wants to be disappointed, yeah? So people putting bots there without an escalation to human for learning and for, if you go as an end user and want to start something, you want to finish it. You don't want to go start back to square one on the phone trying to do something. So it's super important. Train the NLP with people that are experts. A lot of people think, oh, the technology is so easy. I can be an NLP specialist. Well, probably if you do something very simple, yes. But if you have 5,000 intent and then, you start to have collision in your training data and your bot doesn't understand anything at one point in time because you have used similar training data for different intent, then it's just not going to work anymore. So we have a few rescue projects now happening where people were, not necessarily versed enough. It doesn't show at the beginning, but it does show at scale, so be very mindful. And then obviously get the right metrics. So what are you trying to get out of the bots? Are you trying to, have a low-cost call center? Are you trying to, all of those things are really important to track from the outset so you can also validate the performance. Too many times we hear there's a chatbot experiment on this crap, and we're like, oh, what were you trying to achieve? I don't know. Well, POCs are I kind of banned it in my team as a word. We don't do proof of concept anymore. We do proof of value. We really need to find something that's useful on solving a problem because the technology is out there. Really, the key that has to be proven there is can you bring all of those bits together to create something that's differentiated. So, and I wanted to finish on this before we open up for question. Don't forget, conversational AI systems are much better in terms of carbon efficiency than actually real physical call centers in terms of carbon emissions. So this is an example from one of our Nordic clients, but obviously, when you imagine big desk or call center, with their laptop and all of that kind of things, it is quite different to do an automation. And so what does the future look like? Well, I really believe the conversational AI voice is the new system of engagement for the planet, for a lot of the brands. Not only they can do high-touch conversation with different people, but all of that can be digitalized and understood. So many times we found ourselves in a call center where people were like, we don't have access to the recordings because it costs a fortune, they're on tape, or actually the human agent in call center would have classified all the answers in the wrong bucket because it gives them more time to answer the question. So actually, you kind of end up with a call center and you just don't know what's going on because the classification of why people call is wrong and you can't access the data. So obviously, when you do conversational AI, you get that insight about that contact with your customer and you can really do something with it meaningfully. And, it's not about classification anymore, it's about real data, and you really go to the bottom of the problems. So I think it is the future. It's 24/7, can speak any languages. I think sometimes it can be very useful. And, can be augmented by human. I truly believe after offshoring call center in low-cost location, conversational AI is actually bringing all that work back in the core, in the home of all our clients and organization, and really kind of taking that essence and insight to create the next generation, experiences. And that's it.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So like you requested, I'll give you the questions and you just fire your answers over there. First one, what is your take on using AI and robotics in modern warfare? Do you mean Call of Duty or I assume warfare? What's your take on using AI and robotics in modern warfare?
Ooh, that's a hard question. I can tell you when I was at the EU on the working group for trustworthy AI, when we were pulling all the things together, we decided as a group that we were unqualified to address this particular domain. So we did take it out of the scope of the trustworthy AI because we felt we needed, deep specialists, not on AI, but also on warfare. So this is a hard topic. It's used already in a number of scenarios. It's a difficult topic.
Okay, all right. And then seeing we are, it's popping. Is there a way to ensure that the information received from the AI is correct? How would you prevent misinformation?
The information from AI is correct. Okay, so you're always in control of the data you use for training, always, yeah? That's why very often we always do human-assisted training sessions, so you can review the data before you train your system. Yeah, I think for any commercial organization that needs predictability, this is super important. I think the only area where people don't do necessarily human oversight is marketing data. If things are used for marketing reason, then if they get it wrong, I think some of the marketers don't do as much quality assurance on the data. But if you use any system in any commercial organization that needs predictability and consistency and transparency, you need to have somebody overlooking the training data and the training of your AI.
Okay, and a logical question, seeing we are in the extended reality metaverse room, how does the metaverse fit into all of this?
It fits very well, actually. So for those that were there before, Fadi and I did a project with the West Midland Police quite recently, because conversational AI can be used together with the metaverse. So you can when you in your reality you can speak and the system can speak back. So we can team up. And the use cases we did there, we were training the police for stop and search. So police forces, when they stop bad people in the street, or supposedly bad people in the street, they have a series of things they need to do. And it can be quite dangerous, obviously, to stop people. They can have a knife, they can fight you back and things like that. So we had a training where we were doing this in the metaverse with conversational AI. So we could actually test the police officer, if they ask the right question, if they do the right behavior, getting closer to the person and all of that. So they marry very nicely.
Okay, there you go, we still have time. How fast, in your opinion, will conversational AI replace helpline employees in banking, government, structures, etc.? Will everybody be satisfied with that?
So there's a couple of questions there. I think it's going to go very fast because we going through much change. And, let's be honest, call centers agent, they rotate anyway all the time. They don't like their job. So they do it for like a short period of time to kind of plug a gap. So, and that's one of the main challenge of brands is the call center agent, they always have to be trained on all of that because they're just so volatile. So ultimately, I think in the US, it happens a lot already. I think in Europe, it will happen more and more. Especially now with things like COVID, people couldn't really cover a call center. How many times did you call a helpline and got like, oh, we're in COVID, we may call you in 3 days or something like that. So, there's been some challenge around mobilization as well. So I think it will happen probably in the next 5 years. And I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing to be elevating, using the technology to do some automation and have the human overlooking what's happening and doing the training, because you still need the agent, superhuman, to kind of do that training. I think, are people going to be satisfied? Well, people that are actually currently doing the job will need to find another plug gap. But we know it's a plug gap. There's very few people that are call center agents that are making career in it, yeah? So that's the first things. Now, if you look in many markets, the workforce is lacking. There's more job than people to do them. So I think that it won't be short of plug gap. We're in a reinvention, and I think it is, it is easy to find a plug gap.
All right. And then the last one, how can we ensure that someone won't use AI to run scam calls?
Oh, yeah, that already happens, I think. Well, I think that's where the regulations and some of those things are important, yeah? Just to put barrier into it. I think we have a lot to learn. It's like the introduction of new technology. We have a lot to learn on how to circumvent some of those things. So I think more to come there in the regulatory space. I think as a users, just be very careful if you don't know, the brand or, the phone number that are texting you, meaning I think every brand now is very adamant about what they do or what they don't do, yeah? So be mindful. This will happen.
All right. That being said, give her a big round of applause.
Thank
Laetitia
you.
Cailleteau.